Hi, everyone, and welcome back to the podcast. Today, I have the pleasure of interviewing Melissa Bond, who is a narrative journalist and poet. In the years of her dependence on benzodiazepines, Melissa blogged and became a regular contributor for Mad in America. ABC World News Tonight interviewed her for a piece in January 2014. Melissa is a respected writer on the perils of over-prescribing benzodiazepines and has been featured on PBS Story in the Public Square, Radio West, the podcast Risks, IGNTD, and Psychology Unplugged. The Salt Lake Tribune and the New York Post have both done features on Bond's book Blood Orange Night, her memoir about becoming dependent upon and the withdrawal process coming off of benzodiazepines. Blood Orange Night was published by Simon Schuster in June of 2022. Learn more at melissaabond.com. Please stay tuned after our show for our conversation. Thank you. Hi, Melissa, and welcome. I can't wait for people to hear your story, hear about your book, and the decision that you make for yourself in your tapering process.
Geraldine, I am thrilled to be here, and thanks so much for inviting me.
Absolutely. So let's get into how you even was prescribed a benzodiazepine.
Okay. Um, so I think what I want to start off by saying is that I was one of those people that never took medications, had never, never really struggled with anxiety or anything that would require anything like this. So it was a really big surprise to me when it was about 2009 and I became pregnant with my second child, very close together pregnancies. And I had a sudden onset of severe, debilitating pathological insomnia. So, when you're pregnant, the doctors really have no idea what to do. So, after the first trimester, they put me on Ambien, which they call a
Mm-hmm.
D drug, very similar to benzos, but not quite the same. Um, did not like it, but was really desperate because I was sleeping maybe an hour or two a night before that. Um, and made it, I sort of crawled my way through the pregnancy and then cold turkeyed off of that because I just hadn't been advised to do anything else. The doctors had said, just take it every night and then you'll be good. So
Wow.
3 months after my daughter was born, I, had severe rebound insomnia. I was barely sleeping, and I went to see this doctor that I call in the book Dr. Amazing. And he said, "Oh my gosh, you are gonna on the verge of a psychotic break if you don't get sleep. I'm gonna prescribe a sedative. It's totally safe. It's called Ativan." And he gave me 2 milligrams to be taken every single night. And that's how it started.
Wow. And that's a pretty decent dose to even start on.
That is the dose they give people who are having grand mal seizures in an ER room.
Right.
So it's a big dose.
It is. And he also knows you've got an infant daughter at home that you are breastfeeding and another toddler, but he's about 6 months old when you have your daughter, correct?
He was 6 months old when I got pregnant, so he was about,
Okay.
17, 16 months old at this point. So yeah,
Okay.
and, special needs kiddo and then an infant.
Right. And
And
breastfeeding. And he has no concern for that.
no, I mean, this is what's so remarkable, Geraldine, is I remember sitting in his office, and he was an MD who also really was interested in, what he said was called getting to the root cause of disease. So he, looked at, hormone levels. He looked at cortisol levels, and he said, yours cortisol is the get up and go hormone.
Hmm.
Um, and he said that mine was surging at like 9 o'clock at night, and it was an adrenal issue. Um, but he said, we need a strong sedative to help your adrenals regulate. And he looked in this book. I remember we were sitting in the office, grabbed this big binder, opened it up, and he said, okay, if I give you Ativan, because it's such a short acting, very, very fast medication in terms of you get a real punch, I call it a pharmaceutical hammer. And then he said it will exit your system so it will be safe for the baby. This is what he told me. And I
Right.
just believed him.
Right. Right. And one of the things, because I'm not finished with the book, but I've read the book, is that your daughter is having a lot of issues, and it could be because you were breastfeeding and she's getting it in her, and, it's so short acting. I mean, as I was reading, I'm thinking, "Oh, this poor baby,"
Right.
and you don't know.
Right, there's no way to know because I mean, I actually remember looking it up in there's a book, gosh, when was it written? It's a Dr. Spock book, and they have these kind of lists of types of babies, and she was the don't put me down ever
Mhm.
baby. So she was a, a definite type, but I had those questions like what is the ambient? Did the ambient affect her? Is the Ativan affecting her? And it was this really deep struggle of knowing I had to sleep to be able to survive. And at the same time, is this having an impact on my little sweetheart, you know?
Right, right. So now you're on the 2 milligrams of Ativan, and where does it go from there? And how is it working? You're getting decent sleep? How are you during the day with both of the kids?
Right. So the first night, of course, it was like gold. I slept like 7 hours. I remember feeling like I talk about feeling like the cat in the hat of motherhood. Afterwards I was like, oh
Mhm,
my gosh, I'm going to teach my son how to sign an Egyptian, like I'm going to make casseroles for the next century. Like I am
mhm.
so good. And then it just went downhill really fast. So predominantly my issue was insomnia, and so the insomnia just kept getting worse and worse. So I think I noticed it probably within 2 weeks, but at 4 weeks, I went in to see him again. And he said, it's going to take, again, like this very calming, very reassuring. It's going to take a while to get your adrenals really back and strong. And to do that, you have to sleep. So we're going to up your dose to 4 milligrams every single night. And don't worry. Like he just kept reassuring me. And I think, Geraldine, at that point, it's important to say that there's a cognitive decline that when you're getting really sick, you just don't notice it. And I had two infants basically. And
Right,
so I didn't know like what's just the typical like mama exhaustion and what's something that's really scary that's happening as a result of these drugs.
right. I was just gonna ask you, what are you feeling? Well, you are reaching tolerance so fast. I
So
mean, that is fast how, in a few weeks that you're reaching it and then he's upping you. You know, you have to be confused. What is normal? Like, what do you start feeling that you're questioning?
right. Well, it ended up being a couple of things that were really helpful that I had to have kind of outside intervention. And by that, I mean, I was starting to have what they call anterior grade amnesia because it impacts the ability to formulate new memories, new short-term memories. So for example, I would have a friend, I would try to have this kind of semi-normal life, of
Mhm.
like, let me go out and or have a friend come over and we'll have lunch together and we'll take care of the kids. And I would have a friend arrive at my door and say, we talked about this like less than 12 hours ago. We set a time, we had this conversation. I would remember none of it. So that
Yeah,
was one thing that I noticed. I also noticed that I was unable to eat very well at all. I would have these horrific stomach cramps anytime I would try to eat, which is very much a symptom of the brain's dysregulation of the GI tract, which
yeah,
which is very well documented as a symptom of benzodiazepines. And um, I just excused everything because I didn't have anything that made sense. So I thought, oh, I've had two C-sections. The last one was really grisly. I think they just put my intestines back in wrong.
yeah. Oh,
So
when I read that part, I'm thinking, wow, I never even knew what happened during a C-section, and you just did a very good job describing it.
it's pretty grisly.
Yeah,
But yeah, I mean, and it's amazing how we can be in this state of denial and kind of try to come up with some kind of logical explanation. I was also starting to lose my balance a lot. I would
mhm,
walk through the kitchen and I just would run into everything. And you could see this like map of bruises all over my body on my
yeah.
legs and
I
back.
I had that. My husband would say, "What are all these bruises?" I had that, you know?
Isn't that remarkable that
Yeah,
we just, and there's no way I would have thought, oh, this is related to the sleep medication my doctor said was totally fine.
mm,
So,
okay, wow.
Yeah, so those were the first things I started to notice. But again, I just made excuses. I had no idea it was the medication.
Right. We have no, a lot of us walk around with just good patience, taking them as prescribed. So now
Exactly.
you're up to 4, and I
My,
know it's gonna get higher here, which is gonna it's amazing what they've done to a young mother here.
right, absolutely. And I do remember, I'll just say quickly, there was a time, so I went in probably this was the third time I went in because I didn't have a refill and I was starting to get panicky, like what do I do? And he was out of town. And I remember seeing a nurse practitioner that was taking his patients while he was out of town. And she said to me, "Are you sure you're on 4 milligrams?" And I said, "Yeah, that's what he prescribed." And she put a note in my chart that I ended up getting my chart years later as I was researching this book, and the note says 4 milligrams is a very high dose. Something is going on. We need to have a discussion. This was her note to
Wow.
Dr. Amazing.
Yeah.
And the next time I went in to see him, he made no reference to that note, said absolutely nothing, gave me both a prescription for 6 milligrams of Ativan as well as a prescription for Xanax, which he said I could just take them you know, as I needed, go back and forth between the two, and gave me about a year's worth or plus, over a year's worth of prescriptions, and never said a word about come back in, how are
Yeah.
you feeling?
Yeah.
Just, gave me just a horse's amount.
Right, and gives you 2 short-acting benzodiazepines,
Right.
which is unbelievable.
Unbelievable.
He is Doctor Amazing.
Right. Right. I mean, obviously that's extremely tongue in cheek, but
Yeah.
um, so at that point I had over a year's worth of, being able to take 6 milligrams of Ativan every single night. And then things really, really hit the dirt.
So, quick question, when he gives you a year's worth, does he give you, like, so many with he gives you way too many refills, or he gives you so much, and how did he do that? Because I know they do try to control it. How did he
Yeah.
do it?
Well, so this was back in about, I think at this stage it was 2010, so it's 12 years ago. They didn't have then any kind of warning, that they have now. The FDA has put, um,
Right.
thank goodness, thanks to the, strong actions of the folks at the Benzodiazepine Information Coalition. They really pushed for the FDA to put a warning on these drugs, and the FDA did that in 2020. But back then there was nothing. So it kind of depended on what state, what pharmacy, and I never had anyone even blink twice that I had refills that, it was 6 milligrams per night, and then I had enough refills to last a year.
Wow.
Yeah.
Okay. Oh, all right. So now what happens? You're up to and you go to the 6 milligrams. You don't even question it. You go to the 6 milligrams.
Go to the 6 milligrams. And at this point, I believe my cognitive decline was so severe that I was not tracking myself at all. I was just really focused on every single day. How can I take care of my kids? I was starting to feel fire in my skin all of the time. I felt nauseous. I felt like I had the flu every single day. And I just kept thinking, maybe this is just the fact that I'm still not sleeping. I mean, I would slide back down, maybe averaging 5 hours a night. But at this point, my daughter is maybe a year and 3 months, and so
Mm,
I'm thinking, she had stopped being a tough baby at that point. But um, I just thought, boy, being a mom is the hardest thing. I never thought I would feel so sick every single day.
right. And are you no longer breastfeeding her because you're on such a high dose? What's happening
No,
there?
I continued to breastfeed her up until the point um, at which I started working with Dr. Kate, and this was after I had this episode where I realized, which I'd love to just talk about really quickly, because I didn't know it was the drugs at all that were causing all of this. And I had this moment one night where I was pulling my daughter Chloe out of the bath, and I took a step to walk towards her bedroom, and I fell like a dead body from a bridge. Like my muscles worked and then they just stopped. And I watched as like our heads both, moved very quickly towards this corner wall and knew that I would split one of our heads open. And so I wrenched my body and I thought, oh my gosh, I must have MS. I am sure, or no, it's a brain tumor. I went through that whole litany of like something, some major undiagnosed neurological issue is what's causing everything. And then I thought, no, I used to be a rock climber. I used to travel to third world countries by myself. Like I was a totally different person. What do I know about these drugs? And so I started to research them, and I knew suddenly all of the information came up. I found the Ashton Manual, which is like the manual, that is a godsend for those of us trying to get off. And it
Right. If it
says
if it wasn't for that, to this day, we really still have nothing,
we
especially in this country.
especially I absolutely the US is very, very far behind, especially like the UK. So what I saw there was that Dr. Ashton recommends a switch over to Valium, which is a longer, it stays in the body longer, so the withdrawal effects are not quite as severe.
Hmm.
And when I worked with, so I found another doctor who was very, very open to a patient led taper, which is essential for anyone trying to get off. And
Absolutely.
so we switched me over to part Valium. And that's when I weaned my daughter. She said, because the Valium stays in the body longer, you will be feeding her Valium. So you cannot breastfeed. And so I stopped at that point.
Hmm.
But I had been breastfeeding her the whole time
Mm.
with the Ativan. Yeah.
Well, okay. And she's healthy.
She's healthy. I mean, there's no way really to know if there was any kind of neurological impact. What I can say is she's a remarkable child and incredibly sensitive, and she was difficult. And, I'm kind of on the lookout for that all the time.
Right.
But I feel lucky. She
Yeah.
seems, she's great.
Good. So now the new doctor switches you. You're half Valium, half Ativan. You've weaned off Chloe. What's happening now?
So we try this step down method with half Ativan, half Valium, and we do that for 5 months, and it is just grueling, Geraldine. I am having seizures sometimes. I am having my muscles are flickering. I can barely walk. I'm losing so much weight. I'm at a weight that I was when I was 11 years old.
Mm.
I mean, I'm skin and bones. My friends are asking if I'm anorexic. And finally, we decide, Dr. Kate and I, she says, I cannot, and that, this is a medical professional who has been practicing for years. She says, I do not know how to get you off these drugs. She's afraid that it's going to kill me. She said, I'm afraid you're going to have a seizure and die. So she starts looking through her network of doctors to find someone who specializes. And I do the same thing. And just out of sheer good luck, I think, I found someone who recommended a board certified addictionologist. So, this is a doctor who has studied addiction medicine on a very deep level. And that is what changed the course of my, being able to successfully get off benzodiazepines. That was Dr. James in the book.
Okay. And so here's a question, because I had an orthopedic doctor contact me once, and he was saying that when you go to an addictionologist, they have to get you off in a certain amount of time. Now, again, mind you, this is years ago, that, they insurance won't allow you to taper on a certain amount. I'm like, well, that doesn't make sense. But again, this is years ago. So this
Yeah.
doctor is going to allow you to do a nice, slow, safe taper. Is that correct?
Yeah, and that's
Good.
very interesting because he was a GP. So he was practicing family medicine, but he
Oh.
also was a certified addictionologist. And the way he described it to me, so I wouldn't have known that he was an addictionologist.
Hmm.
He said, I can help people more effectively this way. So that certainly, it may have been the case back then as well. That
Right.
he was kind of flying under the radar.
Yeah, because this doctor said to me, don't tell people to go to addictionologists. They have to do it in a certain amount of time.
Gosh.
It's something I probably should research now, all these years later.
Right,
So
right. I never
that's
even thought of that.
interesting. Yeah, yeah.
Mhm.
All right.
Yeah.
So Dr. James is very
So
understanding. He's
Oh, he was
what's
amazing.
what's he gonna
It
do with you?
it was like yeah, so it was like being in the hands of someone who knew. He was like, "Okay, I'm betting you are in withdrawal tolerance." He said, "Do you know what that is?" And I said, "Yes. That means I'm basically in acute drug withdrawals, even though I am actively on the dose of medication that my doctor has prescribed." And he said, "Yes." So he took a sort of an inventory, said, "What are the worst withdrawal symptoms?" And he said, "We are going to completely adhere to the Ashton manual. You're going to switch over entirely to Valium." And then we did a reduction of 10% of my dose every 2 weeks. And he said, this is kind of what they call a happy path. This is when, if things are going well. But he said, if at any point the withdrawals become too severe, you come back to me and we'll figure out what we need to do. And so it
Okay.
was all based upon how my brain was adjusting to the
Okay.
reduced.
Good, because that's one thing Heather never wanted. She used to say, "Geraldine, I don't want people to use it like a lawnmower manual." She's like, "If I put in all the different lengths that they could do it, it would be 500 pages." So
Right.
that's good. He gave it, it was going to be based on how you feel.
Yes.
Good.
Yes. And there were times that I hit a wall and I would go in to see him and I would say, "I haven't slept for 4 days. My intestines have shut down." And he would say, "Okay, stop."
Yeah.
you know,
Now, do you remember when he did switch you over? Because you're half Ativan, half Valium. What did he switch you over to? Like, what was the mark? And when
so
you got there, how did it feel like it did it level you out?
oh my gosh. So I'll speak to what that night was. So we went from 6 milligrams of Ativan to 60 milligrams of Valium.
Hmm.
And that night it was like my brain was exploding. I had dreams. I remember these horrific dreams that I detail in the in the book. Um, but I woke up and it was like my brain was on fire, but it had kind of stabilized. I could move, I didn't feel that much better, but I felt just a little bit better. And then we waited for about 6 weeks after that, I think, because my husband at the time and I had to figure out how we were going to construct a way to support making sure the kids were okay, making sure that the house could continue running while I was sort of going into this great unknown of what the withdrawals would look like,
And
and
what's the situation with the marriage at this point?
oh, it was
Wh-
it was terrible, Geraldine.
Well,
You know,
because that's a big thing. It really affects marriages.
oh,
So,
absolutely. I mean, I think some people, some partners can get in and become really, really as focused on trying to help and we're going to get through this together. I kind of feel like it's like you know, one of those horrible, scary adventures, and you either bond together and you decide we're going to conquer this together, or it just absolutely fractures you. And for us, I think because my ex-husband emotionally just didn't have the bandwidth, it just fractured us. So he
yeah.
just shut down.
Mm. Yeah, it's tough. It's not easy, number one, with the young children, and then throw this in on top, with the
Right.
medications harming you. And then you've been so iatrogenic hurt by it, you have to go through this whole process to get off. And let me tell you, the marriages that do survive, it's a miracle.
I think it's a miracle. I
Yeah.
mean, I think it's so, so difficult and it's so unknown. I think this is what's really difficult for the partner or for both people because
Hmm.
there's not like with other illnesses that are familiar in this culture, like cancer or any kind of, even if it's a neurological issue, you can usually have tests and you can point to the offending, item. You can say, okay, there's the tumor, or there is
Hmm.
what's happening in the brain. There's the white matter, and collectively there's a community that comes around you. People will say like, do you need a food train? Can we help you with the kids? But with this, there was nothing my ex-husband could see. He couldn't like relate anything tangible to the anguish I was experiencing.
Yeah. It's beyond. I mean, we had somebody whose brother had died of cancer and everybody was surrounding him. But when the younger sister's going through the benzo withdrawal and it's horrific, I said
Yes.
to the mother, I said, Even though it's awful what your son went through, your daughter's even sicker, you
Yes.
know? So it's very hard. People surround those with cancer and stay away from those going through benzo withdrawal
Right. It's
when we
so
needed them the most. Yeah,
Yep. Yeah, absolutely. And I found that like our friends definitely kind of floated away because there was so much uncertainty. There was
right,
that question, is Melissa just, is she an addict? Like, is she going through there just was no, what I call a narrative
right,
of what benzo withdrawal is. There's just, she seems really sick and we're just going to kind of give them space because we don't even know what to think about it.
right. So let's get into the fact that you're actually doing okay. It's not great. I mean, so I was reading a little bit where you go to somebody's house, right, to rest, and
Yeah.
you've got somebody with the kids. I mean, you're actually very smart what you did to protect yourself as best you could with children. Tell us a little bit about that. And then as you're getting down below the decision, which I think is so important and brave of you to make this decision at this point in your life. And that's what the main thing I want everyone to understand.
Yeah, yeah. So I'll quickly speak to something that I was able to do that was the best recommendation a therapist gave me when I was sort of constructing this rehab basically for myself and ability and space to have these withdrawals. This therapist had said, you know what? This is going to be probably the worst thing you've ever been through, physically, emotionally, spiritually, for your relationship. And he said you need a place that you can go to fall apart, and your family is going to need space from that. I didn't want my husband at the time to see me falling apart or writhing or vomiting or like having these little seizures that I would have. And I didn't want my kids to witness that. So the therapist had said, do you have friends you could stay with for part of the day for the next 4 months? And to my incredible fortune, I did. I had friends, one of whom was a psychiatrist. They're like family to me. And they said, you can come and stay anytime. So I would sleep there at night because I would have a lot of difficulty at night. And then during the day when the kids were at daycare, I would go there and just like sleep and, sort of help myself regulate. So I did that for about 6 or 7 months. At that point, my son, who has Down syndrome and autism, had been in a daycare center, and they said, unfortunately, we just cannot provide him what he needs. He was really struggling. And so I ended up becoming full time kind of mama again. And after I did try to do a liquid titration at that point, and it just the stress of the marriage and the stress of being back home were just too hard. So what I did was end up holding at 5 milligrams of Valium, which really stabilized me. I was not having any additional, withdrawal symptoms. I always thought that I would go back to the point of tapering because I was so committed to this sort of Hollywood ending, Geraldine, where I
Hmm.
came out victorious and I had conquered the medication. But I never did. I realized that, now I'm a single mother. I work full time. I've put out a book. And for me to go back into withdrawals when I'm not suffering in a way that, is impacting my life, um, I just haven't been in a place where I can do that. So I am holding, and my life is incredibly rich and healthy. And I feel just lucky
Yeah.
right now.
So
It's not the Hollywood ending.
it's not the Hollywood ending yet, but it's the right decision for you when you're a single mom with kids and working. And the book has now just come out on June 14th, right?
That's right.
So, which it's published. The editor is Simon and Schuster. I mean, I'm not done yet, but I'm telling you, it's especially any of those that have had children or we had horrible time sleeping, and you just describe everything so well. An enjoyable for those of us that have been through a benzo withdrawal. We get that part of it, but the
Yeah.
other part is it's very entertaining and very well written.
Oh gosh, thank you. I love
Yeah.
hearing
So one of the things in my notes that where did you find the time to write the book? So as we get into that, I mean, the time, I know you did a Kickstarter, right? Which
Uh,
was, again, very smart, very smart to do that.
Thank you. Yeah. So when I separated from my husband, I was unemployed. I had lost, part of the stress that contributed to the insomnia was losing my job as a magazine editor in the recession. So I knew that I had to kind of figure out a new livelihood because being a magazine editor in Utah, there weren't a lot of options. So I was unemployed, and I thought, okay, I know deep in my soul that I've got to write this book, not only for me, but also for others like me or family members or anyone who's gone through like a really deep, dark night of the soul. So I ran the Kickstarter and I said, this is basically, I'm going to work half time and I'm going to spend a year to write the first draft of the book. And I did that. Um, and I got a job, ironically, on the date I said I was going to start looking for a full time job. So,
Oh,
yeah,
very good, very good.
yeah. And then it took me 3 more years of editing to finally get the book to the place I wanted it to get to. And that was just early mornings and late nights.
Very good. So where
Yeah.
can people, it's on Amazon, correct?
It is on Amazon. It is in most bookstores. It's on Barnes and Noble. It's one of their picks for June. It was one of their picks for June or for the summer. I'm not sure, but yeah, it's pretty much everywhere. So they should be able to find it.
Well, it's funny. I was having a conversation with my son's chief of staff in at the State House, and she's like, "Hey, you know what? You got her. Have you heard of Melissa Bond?" I'm like, "I
Ah,
actually," I said, "I
oh my,
actually just hung up from her like an hour ago. You know, when we talked for the first time." And she goes, "Oh, the book Blood Orange Night. It's on the New York Times bestseller. You've got to read it." I'm like,
oh
I said, I'm actually on the list, to get the book. So I said, yeah, I said, we're going to be doing a podcast. So
yes.
she's got it on her list of summer reading. She's in the middle of one now, and then yours is the next book she'll do.
Oh my
So
God.
how I couldn't even believe that she said that. So
Yep.
that was funny.
So great. So
Yeah.
great.
So the kids now, they are, if I remember right, they're 12 and 13.
12 and my son just turned 14.
14.
Yes.
Wow. All
Yes.
right. And so, what I like, and the main reason we were doing this, not only for your book, I have seen, and not that I'm in the groups that much online, but I've seen somebody say, I don't have a life. Nobody's, talking to me and my family. They don't believe me. If I could just go back on a little bit and function till I get to another point in my life. And again, we're not telling people to go back on. That is a personal decision. But when
Absolutely.
somebody's tapering and life interferes, as I've seen over 25 years where people hold their taper, nobody has a right to say, "Oh, Melissa, no, you have to finish getting off." No one has a right to tell you that. You've got
Absolutely.
kids, a job, you have to do your life.
Yes.
And you
Yeah.
maintain a healthy lifestyle, right? So that we know you are still taking very good care of yourself, even though you're on it.
So true. So true. I mean, I became absolutely vigilant about the food that I eat, my sleep hygiene. Obviously, I'm very, very, cautious about it. And I'm healthier now. I was healthy before, but now I exercise almost every day because that gets good, endorphins into my body. And I have a really quick feedback system because I don't think my nervous system will ever be the same.
Hmm.
But then again, I know now exactly what I need to do to, keep my nervous system balanced. And that is the crucial aspect. Like I will not do anything that will take me off of that balance.
Good. See, and again, that's you taking care of you. We're all different. We have different things going on. One of the things you and I kind of yesterday, I talked to you quickly about because you're in Utah and now you've got a doctor that's going to keep you on the Valium.
Yeah.
And one of the things I mentioned, and we see this happening across the country, is that people are walking into doctors' offices saying, we no longer prescribe benzodiazepines, or a doctor one day decides, yep, you know what, I don't prescribe them anymore. Somebody went to a place and they had to sign a form that at that clinic they do not prescribe benzodiazepines. So you've got a good doctor. And what's going to happen with you? Like they're going to keep you on part of our bill here in Massachusetts, and it kind of got left out. So we're going to do an amendment. was to protect any long-term users. No one has the right to take them off. You already did it. You already prescribed it. They've been on it for years. And it needs to be either they decide to never come off if they've been on for a long time, or they can only get so far, or, it's their decision.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. I think, it's very tricky because I'm both happy that there's a heightened awareness about the dangers of benzodiazepines, but you're exactly right. There needs to be a real caution if people have been taking them for a long time. I have a friend that's suffering this right now. She has a doctor that's saying, "Nope, I'm not going to prescribe them."
Oh,
And that is essentially forcing people into a dramatic, you know, um, taper that they are not ready for. So we absolutely have to support the patients as well as having policy that ensures that we don't overprescribe with the new
right.
prescriptions. But without having those two together, we're setting people up to fail.
Right. I actually have a friend I did a podcast with. She's been on Benzos now for like 40 years. And thank God she has a very good doctor. And he said to her, "You've been on so long," and she's doing wonderful coming up, micro taper. He lets her go at her pace. And he said, "We might not be able to get you all the way off. It's been so long." So he's very understanding of her needs. She
Yeah.
wants to try it, but there's no pressure. Then
Yes.
if she walked in to another doctor, you'd say, "Oh, I don't prescribe them, and you're off as of today." That to me is the most frightening thing.
Oh, and it's horrific. That's where people can have a fatal seizure or a psychotic break, or they end up in the ER and they get shot up with more benzos, and then
Yeah,
they're in this like constant up or down, and it's scary. I think we will see a lot of fatalities
yeah. I
that happen.
know, it's very scary. So,
Yeah.
I'm not very good technologically, we all know that, and so, when I was talking to Holly Hodman the other day, she said, "Oh, I follow Melissa on, Instagram. Make sure you say hello." So, what is your so I just went to your Instagram the other day when I heard this, just so people can go to your Instagram, what is your Instagram account?
My handle is at Melissa B
Mhm.
author.
Okay.
And my website, and that my website has links to all of my social media platforms, is melissabond.com.
Okay.
There's a lot
Perfect.
of fun stuff there. Yeah.
And we're going to put that when we do the show, it'll be there too.
Great.
All right. Any other words that you'd like to have encouragement or choices people could make, or what would you want to say? And before we end, how many hours a night do you sleep?
Oh, I sleep. I average 7
Good. That's
to 8.
excellent.
Yeah, yeah. It feels very good. It feels normal.
Good. Good. Yeah. I'm sure somebody would say, "Well, I wonder how many hours she sleeps now." So that's actually very good.
Yeah, yeah, oh, it's dreamy. And Geraldine, I think what I would want to say to all of your listeners is that my heart is with you. This was truly the most difficult thing I'd ever been through in my life, and my heart is also with the people that are part of the family structure or structure of friends that are witnessing anyone going through it. It is a deep unknown. It's hard to know how to support them, but that there is help out there, and that following your own process is the most important. Absolutely.
Good. Excellent. Thank you so much for coming on, Melissa. I really appreciate it. And I hope
Oh,
everybody will go out and get her book, Blood Orange Night. It is excellent.
thank you so much, Geraldine. I
All
loved
right.
being.
Okay. Bye.
Bye.
All right, Garrett. We just finished the interview with Melissa, which I thought was excellent. And we did have some technical difficulty when we tried to do it yesterday with her, though, right?
Yeah, we're a very low tech podcast. We got to figure it out as we go. So it didn't go so well yesterday. Couldn't get the recording to go the way we wanted, so we had to try again today, and everything went smoothly.
Yeah,
So
we did it 3 times yesterday, and today was a charm. And it just went so smoothly. She's you haven't read the book. I know you saw me reading it, but it's like every morning I have my time with Melissa. I do so many chapters every morning, and I'm really enjoying it. And I could really connect with her as a mother when you have a child. And as you know, we make fun of the fact that I still don't sleep today sometimes.
yeah.
Although since I got COVID, I have I have slept every night for 20 nights. Not one night have I had a problem.
Right. Well, we make fun of you because you always say that you never sleep. So the joke is that you haven't slept in 35 years.
Right. Yeah. And yet I do sleep. I don't want people to think that I don't, but I every now and then, again, you have children, you have stresses, you put on a benzodiazepine, so you really aren't sleeping. And when she talked about somebody would show up at the house, they had these plans and you don't remember.
Yeah.
That was, I'm raising 2 kids also at the time, and I can remember calling my mother in the morning and she'd say, we just talked about all that last night, and I would have no memory of it. And it would just scare me that, like, there was no memory. And
you feel like you're going crazy.
Right. I'm like, Mom, are you sure? And she could tell me what I was about to say. I'm like, okay, so it sounds like you talked to me, but I have no memory. And then, of course, we know I had a huge issue driving. I reached tolerance quickly like her. I'm driving and I'm having interdose withdrawal. And then I got to the point I was petrified to drive.
Yeah.
I mean, it's awful.
Yeah. It's lucky that she found a good doctor that helped her. And
yeah. Yeah. Now, let's talk about her decision to stay on, because we've done podcasts with people who have all come off. And I love the fact that she is putting herself, her health, herself first to take care of her life. The kids are getting older, and she will know when it's time to come off.
Yeah. I don't know. I feel like that's something that we talk about with everybody, that everybody's path is a little bit different. Mm-hmm. I think it's why you were so concerned when we wrote the first version of the bill. Like, you were afraid that people were going to be yanked off and they would lose that ability to make that decision for themselves.
Right.
That's not necessarily what the bill says, but you don't ever want to leave anything ambiguous, so that's something that'll change down the road.
Right. And we actually have to the end of this month for our bill to have the final decision, correct?
Well, depending on when this podcast comes out, Sunday at midnight would be the last day.
Okay. So we're going to be hoping that we make it through this time. But, yeah, so her book coming out is just another wonderful avenue for people to read and to see how somebody's life is, you have this great life. She has this wonderful husband, they're having a kid, and a benzo comes into her life and everything changes. And people just don't get it, what the suffering goes on. Because, I've always said I'm not against these drugs. I'm for the responsible use of them. But, this has been going on now. I've been doing this for over 25 years. Why is nobody listening to the amount of suffering? How many more books are going to be written? Her book is, she's such a good writer, and it's so entertaining, but she is, like, right there making you feel what she feels. So I just hope more medical professionals pick it up.
Yeah, so you mentioned that to her, that you can't put it down. Like, what is it exactly what in her style of writing makes you want to keep reading?
So, I wish I was a writer, but I'm not. She's just very entertaining. You feel what she feels. She's putting you right in you're feeling what she felt back then. You just get it all. And that's what I liked about it. And, for me to take the time to sit down to read, it's a little hard, so like I said, it's like I do it every morning. I get so many chapters in, and it's been really, I look forward to it each morning, because I'm up hours before your father, so that's my quiet time to read.
So we talk a lot about being able to explain what you're going through to the people in your life. If you're going through a benzo withdrawal, do you think reading a book like that would help somebody, or is this something that you have to take from kind of the perspective that you have?
So here's the thing. I think for somebody to read her book, you actually, like even Jody in your office, Jody wants to read her book.
I had no idea she knew who she was.
I was shocked when Jody said, hey, have you ever heard of Melissa Bond? And I had just talked to her. So she's like, oh, no, you have to read this. I'm like, no, I'm actually waiting to read it. If somebody wanted to fully understand what it did to somebody's life, you take this, young mom, writer, has everything going for her, and then in comes the Ambien and then the Ativan. And then the amount of Ativan is just, it's unbelievable how much she's given. So, yeah, she makes you feel what she's feeling. You get a good idea of what it's like. So even if, I remember years ago, one of my friends read I'm Dancing as Fast as I Can. I'm like, you never took a benzo? She said, no, but I loved that book. She said, whenever I feel depressed, I'll read it. So I think my life isn't that bad. So I think she gives another good look into somebody's life that changed because of it, But anyway, so we have, you know, another book on the market that I hope people will read. It's entertaining. It isn't just talking about all the horrors. It's very good.
Yeah. So in the description of this podcast, we'll have her website and everything up there. So if people want to go check out her socials,
check out everything. Yep. And again, I just went to her Instagram the other day, so I get to see what she looked like, because you know me, I like doing the podcast where nobody sees us. We're in our closet where I'm looking over there at a Santa suit hanging that I had to pull out for something. I got a 4th of July shirt over here, so nobody gets to see the mess in the closet. But one of the things I want to talk about is I woke up the other morning to a text from Sandy. There's a lot of Sandys in the group, so this is Sandy K in New Jersey. She had just she had seen As Prescribed, so now some of the donors are seeing it, but and people that saw it when it was geo-blocked into certain states, and now people have seen it over in the UK. I actually got some really beautiful from Claire over in the UK. I got some beautiful voice messages from her. She was so excited after she saw it on the big screen. But Sandy, I want to read what I woke up to the other morning. Let me just get it here. Let's see. It's nice when you see these, because I've known Sandy for a long time. In fact, I'm hoping we get to do a podcast with her very, very soon, because she's one of the ones, she thought she would never heal. And Dad and I just saw her when we were in Florida. Before we came back, we got to go spend a few hours with her. Here's what I woke up to the other morning, because I was exhausted when she sent it. I didn't even hear her come in. And she says, "Just finished watching As Prescribed. You were fantastic. I was so proud of everyone who had the courage to come forward to share their story, a story that must be told. Thank you." She wrote a little bit more. We went back and forth, but that's the basics of it. And I think when people see it, they're going to absolutely love As Prescribed. So...
And you got an email as well, right?
I did. I forwarded you. I got a really beautiful email from John Ashton, Heather Ashton's son. Mm-hmm. I sent it to you. Of course, you didn't send me back a message. What did you think of it?
It was a very nice email. We're going to read it on here. We didn't get John's permission, so we felt like probably won't read it, but I think we could probably do a couple of excerpts from it.
Right. Since Heather isn't here anymore, she's passed away. John is, her representative. And he writes emails just like her. They're just beautiful, beautiful emails. So I was surprised when I saw that the other day from him.
Yeah, so in one of the paragraphs of the email, it says, "I know a little bit from our exchanges over the years about how tough things have been for you, but I didn't fully appreciate the courage, stamina, dignity, and grace with which you have responded to everything that has been thrown at you. As a campaigner for benzo victims and as a daughter, mother, and wife, it makes me proud to know you, as I know Mom was." Mm. And then in another paragraph, he said, "I thought Aaron Brockovich was a good film, and in my work in climate change, I've come across several Aaron Brockoviches. What they have in common is a kind of selfless unstoppability, activism, as it were, through surrender, rather than ego-driven. You are the Aaron Brockovich of benzos."
I know, that was, yeah. And yet, you know what? We're all the Aaron Brockoviches of benzos. Any one of us that get hurt, you just want to turn around, and there just has to be change. It's already been done to us. I always say the reason we do this, we don't want to see it happen to anybody else behind us. So none of us are doing it for any gain, anything. It's like, please don't hurt any more people, And again, I'm for the responsible use of these drugs. But yeah, so I've gotten other notes from people, and but Sandy and I have known each other a long time, and I just thought that was very, very nice from John. And really, the whole thing is really very nice, because he talks about the work that we've been doing here in Massachusetts. He follows everything. So anyway, anything else that you need to tell us to keep us updated with what's going on at the Massachusetts State House? So I guess we have till next Sunday?
Well, this Sunday. So we're recording this on, today is the 26th of July. Mm-hmm. The session technically ends on the 31st at midnight. Mm-hmm. So we're a couple of days here to the end. A lot of work happens now, so mm-hmm. You'll see I'll be in work until midnight the next couple of nights, because the legislature stays open as we're passing bills and coming to agreements on conference committees. So try to stay hopeful on these kind of things. Right. The bill's not dead, so it's like it could happen.
It could. We're hoping. We're very hopeful.
Which just limited amount of time at this point.
All right. Well, I am.
Do you want to talk about still having COVID?
Yeah, I'm on day 20. I'm on day 20. I'm definitely doing better. My voice still sounds a little messed up, but I have to say today is my best day as far as the coughing. I think I've only coughed a couple of times. So, I'm getting there. I've bought, if you look in our kitchen right now, I think I have 6 bottles of different stuff that I've been taking, all natural, with different cough things. And then my cousin told me about 2 more. I went out last night, bought those. And honestly, I think since I've been taking those, the coughing, I'm still congested because I was supposed to leave for Florida tonight. So I didn't leave. Hopefully I'll leave in a week. Yeah, I'm getting there. And I love the fact that I've been sleeping every night. So,
yeah, I mean, obviously I'm fully vaccinated and boosted and still not completely over it.
Right.
I, still am coughing a little bit and don't really have all my energy back yet. So, I don't know. It's strange how it just affects people differently, because I know plenty of other people that got it and they were done with it in 2 days, and it never really affected them all that much. And
yeah,
I don't know.
You and I, look at, I'm not vaccinated. You are. We both got it the exact same way. And, we both still, I would say I'm about 90% right now. Like, I don't have the fatigue that you got. You still have a little bit of the fatigue?
Yeah, I definitely do.
Yeah, that I don't have. At least I don't think I have. I'm just still running around. So, all right. Well, I think this was a fantastic show, and I'm very grateful that Melissa, as we had some issues, with last night, and that we were available today, and she made herself available, and we got it done. So I just want to thank everybody for always listening, and thank you for all the comments that you send me. Just keep spreading the word, letting people know. Some people, I read one time that, and I try to put it on some of the groups, that they didn't even know that I had a podcast. So, you know what? If you like them, tell others about it. I always say, I think we try to pick some good people to interview, but the first 4 podcasts that we did would be, if I could tell myself all over again what to do, it would be listen to those first 4 to start, and then you could start listening to everybody's story, because everybody's story is their own. They've made choices for themselves, or they got thrown into something and didn't know. So hopefully we'll get a few more done before I do have to leave for Florida. And again, I just thank you all so much for always listening.